These are the Knockmen. They're kind of a simplified version of the LEMUR bots.
Songs for Robots is a really special experience because it is really strong musically and interesting and complex, but there's also this really dynamic visual environment that you're experiencing where you're watching these objects that are very unfamiliar, making sounds, creating another experience and another texture.
It's so much fun because there's a whole lot of potential for a whole kind of performance aspect to really be introduced, which is very much a live aspect and very much about interacting with, you know, audiences instead of just for recording purposes. And
this particular project is a great example of taking something like music and fusing it with this whole other robotic world and this visual art world and creating like a whole different new beast that didn't exist before, and that's what we're really interested in here.
LEMUR is a group of artists and technologists that I founded in 2000. LEMUR stands for League of Electronic Musical Urban Robots, and we are a group that creates robotic musical instruments.
I was actually riding my bicycle through Brooklyn on 3rd Avenue. I had seen this store a few times before, and I saw these robot instruments hanging. Strange things. And I introduced myself to him, and amazingly, he knew who I was. I think he had heard of my band One Ring Zero.
And we found out that we had a mutual interest making strange music with strange instruments.
He started coming in and making the robots sound different than we've ever had a composer play on the robots before.
I had already come up with the idea of doing an album where every song was going to be about a different, unusual creature.
He has come up with this like amazing pantheon of bands in the last like 8 years. So he has like songs for Newsworthy News and songs for ice cream trucks and songs for unusual creatures.
And by creatures, I mean things that roam the planet. Everything from underwater to, you name it, amphibians, birds, mammals. Animals that I think have been given less attention and deserve a little more respect. I've always loved Camille Saint-Saëns's Carnival of the Animals. So I thought it'd be fun to do a similar kind of concept album, but using unusual animals. I came across this ugly beast, the Chinese giant salamander. Just thought this thing has to have a song written for it. I could almost hear it coming from a salamander if a salamander actually did make a sound.
This is the fabulous stylophone. It was given to me as a Christmas gift. And it's also probably the nerdiest instrument you can find. It comes equipped with a pen, otherwise known as a stylus.
I find really fascinating about this project is this mix from these real life unusual creatures.
The building. This is a cute one.
And joining them to these robots, which are unusual creatures of their own breed.
They don't look like musical instruments and they don't look like robots, but there's some sort of weird hybrid in between.
So, you know, you'll see the guitar bot.
The guitar bot.
The guitar bot.
The guitar bot.
It just has some really cool sounds.
It's not intuitive that you would have had these like 4 plectrums spinning around, triggering the string.
Bing, 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 bing.
He'll sort of dance and bob his head as he's playing.
They have a handmade quality, and some of them are actually like, in a wonderful way, a little bit defective.
They do take on their own personalities, and they are like misbehaving children.
But, you know, I figure that's all part of the fun.
We're going to have to go back and do that song again, I'm sorry.
You have to slap around once in a while.
Since we take these robots to a lot of different places, we've kind of had to get the roadshow down to a science. So we can show up at a venue and have everything up and running in an hour, hour and a half. We're lean and mean and fast and screaming and all that.
In manager speak, I think that this show has legs.
It sort of transcends all the different sort of musical tastes.
When you see it, it surprises you and it transports you to some different place than you were when you sat down.
Michael's music works really well with what we do, and we're really excited to keep collaborating with him.
I feel like one of the good relationships between me and LEMUR is that these guys build these robots and are not necessarily composers, and I'm a composer, but I don't build robots, so it's kind of nice to fall on this.
I don't think it was entirely on purpose, but was it fortuitous that he started thinking about doing a project about weird, funny, unusual animals at the same time that these robots came into his life.
It's like they're almost sitting there and waiting for someone like me to come along and write some music and incorporate them into my music.